Good to see everybody. 1990, I was 18 years old. I left Mansfield, Massachusetts with my good friend Tom Dempsey from Hyde Park. We were high school teammates at Severian Brothers. We arrived for football camp at the University of New Haven. 1990 was 23 years ago. Everyone tells you how fast time goes, and then it does. My perfect little boy Vincent, right here in the front, 6 years old. He was a little baby, now he's a boy. 12 years from now, you're going to be a freshman in college. In 1990, there was about 100 of us that showed up for football camp from 15 or so different states. 4 years later, there'd only be 13 of us left. Billy Covert, God rest his soul, Tony Ronaldo, Tom Dempsey, the best man in my wedding, Tony Willis, Torrey White, Mike Barber, Chris Lunds. Chris, raise your hand. Connecticut SWAT team, Connecticut State Trooper, first responder, Newtown, Connecticut. Steve Wolf, Steve Lopes, Scott Nato, AJ the Juice Livingston. University of New Haven had great Division II football. We traveled the country. Carson Newman, Tennessee, Abilene Christian, Texas, Towson State, Maryland, Valdosta State, Georgia. We beat a lot of teams. We beat a lot of teams that we weren't supposed to beat. My 5 years, we had 40 wins and 15 losses. The backbone of the program was all the great coaches at the University of New Haven. The bar was set pretty high by the great Coach V, Forte Vieira. I have no doubt that your presence raised the bar for the entire program. There was also Tony Sperano, who his first year at the University of New Haven was my last year. And it's been a pleasure to see all his amazing NFL accomplishments. Being hand-selected by Bill Parcells, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Tony Sperano is a class act and a total gentleman. Pete Rossomando done an amazing job resurrecting his program, getting it back in the top of Division II in a very short period of time. The problem's going to be keeping you around here. But the greatest of all was my coach for 4 years, my head coach, Mark Whipple, the Whip. It was an awesome feeling being around somebody that was so laser focused. Mark Whipple had a simple philosophy. Take the toughest, best 11 kids, put them on offense, and try to score 100 points a game. One year, after a few tough losses and some players wanting to miss practice due to class, Whipple had to come up with a solution. His solution was he moved practice to 5:15 in the morning. For the last 6-7 weeks of that season, we practiced at 5:15. It was dark, it was cold, the sun was coming up halfway through practice. We get back to the dorms and the rest of the kids were still asleep from the night before. We didn't have the rest of the day off. It was films, it was weightlifting, it was team meetings. Division II football at University of New Haven was a full-time job. I'll never forget the year we were on Kerrigan Field where we practiced, famous for its broken glass, big rocks, and one day a dead body. True story. And the Virginia Union bus pulled onto our practice field. And it was a Friday before the game. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Whipple running towards the bus. And the rest of the team following Whipple. And Whipple ran over the two buses of Virginia Union, and he said, "Get off the bus, we're going to play the game right now." And he was trying to get the guys from Virginia Union off the bus to play the game. And Walter Applewhite, there was a big fight, everyone got involved. We ended up leaving the practice field, and the last thing Whipple said was, "We're going to score 100 on your ass tomorrow." Our freshman year in 1990, we started out 2-0. In week 3, we had a 9-hour bus ride to Virginia Union. 9 hours is a long time, especially under the Mark Whipple regime where you were not allowed to talk. Football was all business. 9 hours down on a Friday, stayed in the hotel. Next morning, we got whooped. We lost 63-26. The best player on defense broke his leg in a gruesome Joe Theismann-like injury. They sent that kid back to Florida. We never saw him again. It was a miserable day, losing 63-26, getting back on a bus, 9 hours back home. Remember, there was no talking, especially after a loss. Halfway home, you could start to hear people talk. You could start to hear some chatter. Whipple's in the front of the bus with this look on his face. People got a little louder. Whipple pulled the bus over into a rest stop. He stood up in front of the bus. He said, 63 points? 63 points? They scored 63 points and you guys think you can talk? Right back on the bus, 4.5 hours more home, we pulled into the University of New Haven at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, after 18 hours on the bus in 2 days, a brutal loss. We were sore. Whipple stood up and he said, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, on the practice field, full pads, we're going to go live. You guys are going to learn how to block, you're going to learn how to tackle, and you're going to learn how to hit. We're going back to fundamental football. The greatest story of the program, of the 13 guys that I played with, of Mark Whipple, was in 1993. That was the year the New Haven Register said, if New Haven beats UConn, that pigs would fly. That Thursday's practice, typically it's a light day. This day was not. Whipple had us getting after it. And there was pouring rain. There was mud. And it was a really rough Thursday practice. Went after class that night, I turned on the TV. And that day, they were interviewing a UConn football player. And that day, UConn had moved practice to their new state-of-the-art indoor practice facility. And the UConn football player had this gray-looking sweatsuit with this nice Husky logo. It was really nice gear. University of New Haven, in my day, we didn't have any nice gear. We had gray T-shirts known as the Leo Gray. Named after our equipment man, Leo Paquette. I still got like 7 of them. We loaded up on yellow school buses the day of the game and went to stores. We got off the bus right in front of the UConn football team. They were laughing at us. They called us a high school team. We looked like a high school team. We had the white, tight gym shorts and the Leo Grays, the mesh. Our defensive coordinator, Joe Worth, who was a genius and a real tough guy, in the film breakdown, realized that when the black kid was at running back for UConn, 95% of the time they ran. And when the white kid was at running back for UConn, 95% of the time they passed. And when the huddle broke, we had a white or black call. Final score, New Haven 14, UConn 13. That score did not justify the game, because if that were a bar fight, there was no chance ever at any one point in that game when we weren't going to win. By the way, that year, New Haven 80, Virginia Union 26, and the refs let the clock run the entire fourth quarter. Whipple almost scored his 100. That year, we were one game away from a national championship down in Jacksonville, Alabama. 20,000 screaming fans chanting, "Yanks go home, Yanks go home." Going in for the score to win the game. Up the middle, Roger Graham. It was chaos. We'll never know to this day if he really did get that first down. The season was over. At the end of the day, the University of New Haven, the 13 guys, the great coaches, especially Mark Whipple, were very good to me. My broken leg gave me a medical red shirt. I got my MBA at age 23. It was a 2-year MBA program. I did it in 1 year. To this day, over my desk at work is a picture of Mark Whipple. And I look at it all the time, and I think about all that he taught me about life and intensity and focus and hard work. And you shift it to life. And sometimes if things aren't going great in business, I just show up at 5:15. Sometimes when things aren't going well with family or with life, it's fundamentals. It's blocking and tackling. It's all the tools that he taught me that you can apply, and it feels good. One last thing, and it's about me. I played the game very angry. I played the game very mad. I thought about war, and I thought about war, and I would wear camouflage underneath my uniform. And every game during the national anthem, I would, in my mind, say, today you're going to war. But I knew I wasn't going to war. I knew I wasn't going to die, and I knew that there were no bullets, and everything was going to be okay. And I think about my father, who went to a real war, and it was calming, and it put the rest of the day and the rest of that game in perspective. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk football 1990-1994. Our final inductee for the season, Ed Zimiti, men's soccer, 1965 to 1966.
A scoring sensation for the Chargers from 1965 to 1966, Edward Zimiti helped lead the undefeated